Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
Happy
And
Friday.
and welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts for the show.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host of the show.
And today we are joined by three of the members of the Canadian band The Bills. Hi, Bills.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
And I know you're all in different places, so why don't you tell us who you are and where you are joining us from today?
All right, I'm Mark. I'm on Hornby Island on the west coast of Canada.
Excellent.
Mark Atkinson.
And Chris, where are you joining us from?
Chris Fry here. I'm in beautiful Bamfield, British Columbia, which is on the very west coast of Vancouver Island, on the wild graveyard of the Pacific out here.
Wonderful. And Adrian?
Adrian Dolan. I'm in the Cowichan Valley, a non-specific location in the Cowichan Valley. It literally is in the woods. So I'll go general, but I'm somewhere sort of between those two guys geographically. And if I seem very distracted, it's because there's little ones running around and I'm trying to be moderately responsible.
Yeah, 11-month-old twins. So we might see them pop into the screen at some point.
We might.
Yeah.
We'll hear them.
Well,
There we
thank
go.
you all for joining us.
And today I'm joining you all from Cedar Falls, Iowa. And so I'm on the road again with my parents-in-law, and I am drinking a beer from Cedar Falls. Single Speed
Hey, all right.
is the name of it. It's the
Oh.
Tricycle Cream Ale. It's very refreshing on this hot day. Tony, you're in Minneapolis. What are you drinking
I'm in
today?
Minneapolis, but I'm staying in Munich, where I've been for the last few weeks with my Polliner. I just love a nice wheat beer on a hot day like today here in the Twin Cities. Are you guys imbibing in any sort of...
I know it's early there, but...
Yeah, it's a little earlier where you are, but...
Oh, I've got myself a glass of water here. I'm exhausted.
Hydration is
From
important.
soccer.
But if you sort of do them both, this is from Victoria, BC, a local brewer, Phillips, and I can't get everything in reverse here. That's a Blue Buck, so that's a nice little beer. Yeah, and a bunch of
Nice.
water.
Chris is getting paid to show you that, I think.
And
Product placement.
Adrian, we'll assume you've got a sippy cup of something there.
I'm on the fence here, to be honest.
Maybe after this, something stronger.
There you go, Adrian. Just grab that.
Cheers.
Might not take long.
Cheers to all of you out there watching. Connie in Richfield. We have Waves Ray in South Florida. Our good friend Alan, a G&T saved the day. All right, I think it can. I thought it was a can of G&T is what I was reading there, which I would totally buy a six-pack of that. Great to have you here. And Joe is also sticking with the gin and tonic in South Minneapolis. And a good friend of the show, Matthew Winters. Happy Friday from Urbana. Great to have all of you here live with us today.
Yes. And again, if you are new to the Back Catalog Listening Party, this is where we listen to old records together. We invite artists on to talk about them and share tracks and share their memories, if they're still there, about making these recordings. So I'm so excited about today's show because I've known these guys a long time, but I can't remember the last time. Chris and I were trying to remember last time we saw each other in real life, even pre-COVID, and it's been a long time. But I think this was the record that brought us all together. So I'm really excited. And for folks who might not be familiar with the Bills, Chris, maybe you want to give a little background about the band and how you came to be together and what led up to this record.
Okay, I'll keep this super short, and Mark and Adrian, please jump in because it's a fun history, but it is becoming now like a sort of ancient history in a way, putting your perspective. In the mid '90s, Mark and one of the other founders of the band, this guy Scott White, who's now back in the band. He left us for 20 years, but he's now back as the bass player. We're doing all kinds of cool projects together, sort of jazz and some fusion jazz and rock and prog rock. And anyway, they were doing it all. They were playing, they were touring, playing around town, and they were kind of like some of the superstars of the Victoria music scene, which is a very rich scene. And they decided they wanted to play some new instruments and do some folk kind of stuff. So Scott took up the fiddle, and which no one's ever heard a recorded version of Scott playing the fiddle. Now it's probably for the best. But Mark took up the mandolin, and turned out he was pretty rocking. And so some of us were students. I was studying jazz guitar with Mark, and a couple other guys were part of the scene. We formed this thing as just a sort of jam collective, hanging out in the living room. Once or twice a week we'd play soccer, either after or before, and then there'd be some beer. And anyway, before you knew it, someone had a gig, you want to play here, and we had to think of a name, and we had all this repertoire we were building really fast, like just learning folk tunes. We weren't composing at that point for that project, and we were playing stuff from all over the world, learning as fast as we could, and just the banjo player, because of the genius of banjo players at the time, said, well, let's call ourselves the Bill Hilly Band. And we thought, oh, isn't that clever? We'll be the Bill Hilly Band. And we started getting gigs, and, around town, became pretty popular, did a bunch of dances. And then, one fiddler left. So Scott got a great gig with the Cirque du Soleil in Germany. And so he moved off to Germany, and we had a couple other people join. And eventually, after a couple of years, we found out about this 17-year-old wonder kid who was kicking around town. He had blue hair, and that was Adrian. And so Adrian joined, and I don't know how long you'd been playing accordion, Adrian, but he also was rocking on the accordion. And I guess this is getting to be a longer version of the story, but that's the foundation of the band. So by around 2000, we had, kind of a pretty good core of the group. There was another fiddle player changed a few years later, about 3 or 4 years later, when Richard Moody, who is still currently with the band. So the newest member of the band's been with the band for 17 years. And that's how we got going. And we decided to make a recording. We released a cassette, in 1998, and then did our own CD, released it ourselves in 2000. And so that's the bass player who came around right in 1998. That's Glenn, who's no longer with the band now that Scott has come back. We had a guy named Ollie Swain for a little while, but Glenn really was there for the whole propulsion of what we did together and all our touring, and made the album Let 'Em Run that we're going to listen to today. So, and that's Richard Moody on violin, who's still with the band. So, and that's Adrian and Mark. See, my hairline hasn't changed, but guys,
Adrian, what's under that hat? Do you still have blue hair?
Wisdom.
Wisdom, exactly. So is that a good enough foundation of other band guys? What do you think, Mark and Adrian? I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about how we kicked off.
Yeah, I guess by the time I joined, there were about 200 songs to learn.
Yeah.
And it was in some kind of spreadsheet or something. I remember there was a list, a beer-stained, printed out list that eventually we kind of got through. I don't know if we really got all those ones. But it was like, I've never learned music that quickly before. It was like, let's learn up 7 tunes to play at the gig next week. And we did. We had a weekly gig that was like the experimentation ground for anything. That was, for me, being a 17-year-old fiddle player who was dabbling in accordion, I simply gravitated towards the accordion because it was louder than all the other instruments in the band.
Except my voice.
And except Chris's voice cannot be drowned out. But I, aside from it being kind of like,
well, you
heavy and hard
also
on the back. Go ahead. Oh,
Mark, were you saying
Mark?
something?
Oh, I was going to say the later you're, heavier the instrument.
I think Mark's on dial-up still. So remember that? Oh, that's dating me. All right.
But I think maybe another key thing that Mark can speak to if he wants is that, like, Scott and Mark's attitude about what we were going to do musically was really important. I don't know, Mark, do you want to just how we were going about what we were doing and what we were taking on? Do you want to share any of that? Because I think it's important.
Well, we sure believed in studying folk music and learning as much about folk music and realizing the beauty and the depth of the music that is just everywhere in the world. Everything from Brazil to singer-writer folk music as well as instrumental folk music, and realizing that it's just such a deep well of things to learn from. And that was kind of the focus of was to look into that and see how much you can learn about all now. And I think it's always been something that is at the base of this band, that it felt like it was kind of an additional, kind of a push-your-beats kind of a band from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think we're going to hear that. I think we're going to hear that in this record because, like so many Bill's records, it's very eclectic. So we're going to try and get in as many tracks as we can today. When we hopped on today, Chris was like, we're going to try and get through all these tracks because we want to give a wide range of what the Bills can do. So let's dig into our first track here, or tracks, I should say, because this is kind of a combo of tunes. The album kicks off with with an overture in a kind of classical sense, and then it goes right into Old Blue Bridge. Is there anything that you want to say before we dive into the music?
Maybe I'll say that we had recorded all the tracks. Oh, sorry, there's someone phoning me. How's that happening? I probably hear that. Everything is on my devices. We
It was
recorded the record.
controversial whether the overture should be first or last on this record.
Yeah. So we'd finished the recording, we'd done all the songs, and it was like we knew we wanted to do it. These guys are really, we always had to focus on arranging, interesting arrangements. Let's not just do the classic thing. Oh no, we lost the whole band. I don't know what I said. And so we'd written it, and we said, let's do this. Let's do it like musical theater or classical music, as you mentioned, Ellen. And we wanted to do this overture. It was really fun to do and put together and shift, and we argued. But then when we had it, there was a really big argument about whether it would be better at the tail end of the record, which was kind of more to me like an afterthought. I thought it would be really one of our creative things. We opened the record before this with a bit of an overture, actually, where we stole a piece from Shostakovich. So it was kind of, I thought, a bit of a trademark. So we argued a bit, but it's at the beginning. Maybe a lot of people just press skip when it comes up on their record player, but I think it's a great piece, and then it leads right into the sort of the opening track of the song. So you can hear a lot of Adrian's and Mark's gifts in this, just thinking about how to thread and weave these things together in the overture, and it quotes basically every song on the record, or most of the songs on the record in some way. So yeah, and then we go into a much more classic kind of folky bluegrassy tune that's really based about Victoria. And I was writing a lot of lyrics about our part of the world, because I think that's one of the signatures of folk music, is it to be really grounded and where the people are grounded. We didn't think there was enough material from Vancouver Island, British Columbia. So that's what you're going to hear here.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's give it a listen. Oops, wrong thing here. We got all kinds of fun stuff going on here today. We'll get the album cover, which I definitely want to get into as well. A very cool piece of artwork that people who are watching will see. But we're going to listen to the first two tracks off the album. This is the Bills Overture, Let 'Em Run, and Old Blue Bridge here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
is coming down. Call the captain, let the sirens sing. The gorge is flooded and I'm mainland bound. Mother, tell the children to gather their things. In 1924, the town was healing from the wounds of war. Across the bridge and past Lime Bay, down to the dockyard to work my trade. In 1925, the winter was cold, but the base was dry. Some had prospered, wore diamonds and gowns, but we were scraping in a Squamall town. And at the old blue bridge, they're bringing the plank deck down. Operator, let the bascule rise. So I walked every mile of that couch and ground, just to lay this cursed burden down. It is a weight you cannot see, this poor man's fate that follows me. And at the old blue bridge, they're bringing the plank deck down. Operator, let the bascule rise. You might say I was bound for glory. I might say I was bound to change. The poet sang their happy story, and the Georgia Strait took us home again. 'Cause at the old blue bridge, they're bringing the plank deck down. Operator, let the bascule rise. And operator, let the bascule rise.
And that was the Bills
Yeah.
with their Overture kicking off their 2004 release, Let 'Em Run, and then going right into Old Blue Bridge. And that's how it flows on the record. And Joe was saying, was wondering about the orchestration. He said, I was thinking someone in the group must have studied orchestration. Is this something you did collaboratively, or did one of you kind of chart this out a bit?
You want to take that one, AD? If there,
I have a bit of a memory of a few things. I actually think the bit that might have kicked it off was one of the final bits of the Stardust arrangement. I know you can't touch that, otherwise I disappear again. There was a bit of the Stardust arrangement that had a very big, grandiose, these awesome big, huge voicings, and that arrangement was with our friend Mark. Did arrangement with Joey Smith, and actually has a photo of us sitting with Joey on the couch in there in the studio. And so that was a notated arrangement that he brought to us. That was I think a little bit of the essence that kind of kicked off. Oh, we should like expand on this and do some sort of like bizarre orchestral Andrew Lloyd Webber meets I don't know what kind of thing. And then I think the next move was I just just sort of started goofing around at the piano. And I think one of the things I used to do sometimes when we were hanging out, or sometimes before gigs, or if there was a piano, I would just do the most ridiculous versions of our songs in the most inappropriate genre possible. So like the bluegrass tune became a Parisian waltz, and this became that. And so I kind of strung together as many as I could, and then it gets into the big like dramatic minor part is actually the riff from the sort of happy French Canadian song turned into this like weird harmonic minor kind of thing. So I think I did a playthrough on the piano, just like hoping for the best of stringing together all these ideas. I maybe scribbled them out, and then it was sort of more folk style in how we actually put it together. We just kind of took each section by section and just threw in as many layers as we could. And I think all the strings was me, because Jeremy had already gone home to Winnipeg by that point. But yeah, that was the setup.
And I love, by the way, that your daughter Josie, I think, is following in your footsteps. She's doing her own interpretation of the song.
Oh yeah, orchestration going on back there.
Yeah,
she wants more music right now, I think.
She's like, more music.
Yeah, taking in her own hands.
Right. So yeah, we eventually had enough layers that it had all these sections. And
a good shout out, Adrian.
What's that?
On the good shout out, maybe time too. Adrian does the string parts for sure on that overture. But then we get into the song Old Blue Bridge. Jeremy Penner, who was our fiddle player for not a long time, like a couple of years in the band, but he was really into Cajun stuff. He'd been down with another band to Louisiana a few times, and he had that sort of thing going on. And so it was great. We really took advantage of that. And I forgot that that's the ending on the album, of just sort of fading out with the fiddle sawing away like that. And that was something really nice that Jeremy brought. So there's another member of the Bills on our whole journey that was important to this record.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking of that sort of even on, there's another track on the record that also has sort of a Cajun thing, but I kind of heard that thread on Old Blue Bridge as well, some of that Cajun style rhythms happening as well, which is pretty cool.
Did you have a photo of Jeremy yet? There's a photo of Jeremy in there. I think we already saw it, right?
Did you send the one without his shirt on when he's singing?
I know, he's close.
Okay. Which one is it? I can find it and re-queue it up here.
While you're doing that, maybe I'll explain. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
He's with a fiddle. He looks like he's about 12 years old or something.
Oh yeah, okay, I'm on it.
And for regular back catalog listening party listeners, might be interested to know that Jeremy Penner also played with the Waylon Jennys for a while, who were guests on the show earlier this year. So. Little factoid.
Don't bring them up. They beat us out for the Juno Award on this record.
Oh, really?
We
this
very
year?
Bitter. No, on 2004. Yeah,
2004. Yeah.
This album. Hey, let me mention also that the question about production or engineering. Mark, basically, really, I mean, everybody had a hand in suggesting things, but we worked with this incredible guy named Joby Baker in Baker Studios, who was still really kind of getting going, but has been, really important to our band and other projects that all of us have done. Adrian's really close with him, and Mark too. I think all the production work they do now. But he and Mark were, I think, maybe it was Joby and the Bills, but Mark did a lot of the thinking around production. And it's really Joby he knew how to get great sounds and had great microphones.
There's a photo of you and Joby together, a young-looking Joby.
We all look younger in the photos, oddly enough.
Staring at a computer screen.
But a real shout out to the thinking around sounds and stuff. But Mark also had a really important role of just sort of like project oversight, and we would all fight a lot, about what we should do around the sounds and everything. But Joby's studio and Joby's energy has always been really important to the band.
Wonderful. And did you, when you recorded this, I mean, there's so many, even the core members of the band, there's a bunch of you, but, when you were recording these tracks, were you recording them live, or did you layer on the tracks as you went?
Like a little of both, but I don't think anything is full on the entire thing, with no overdubs, no multi-tracking at all. I don't think any of these tunes came off like that. So, but it was a really solid and strong group effort. It felt like a real record making together, a lot of ideas bouncing around all the time. Fun. And like I said, lots of good fights. A couple of songs, like one that we're not going to listen to today, we recorded, and I just was convinced it was too fast. So we dumped it onto tape, and we slowed the tape down, and we tried to, we made it slower and then put it back into the digital form. There's Joby.
Aww.
Yeah, man. Joby's a transplant from Great Britain and France, where he grew up playing funk drums and bass with his parents' band. He was a legendary musician as well. And met an Italian-Canadian gal and sort of like landed in Victoria to all of our blessing, and they're still there. He's fabulous. Joby Baker, look him up, guys.
Wonderful. Well, I want to make sure that we dig into more tracks because we're going to try and get through all the ones that you wanted to get through today, guys. So the next track we have queued up is Bamfield's John Vanden. Is there anything you want to say about it before we dive in and take a listen?
Yeah, so I'm in Bamfield right now, a little village on the west coast. I won't be able to show you the ocean from where I am, but I'm out in the village with little houses and cabins, and this special place on the west coast of Vancouver Island where the real wide open Pacific Ocean. And our place here comes through my stepfather. My mom married this guy 30 years ago, and he was born here, and his parents were born here. And it's an incredible spot. This wild west coast. It's actually known as the graveyard of the Pacific because there have been so many wrecks over the last 150 years out here. And I had this idea of writing a song that just celebrated the coast, but the central figure became this uncle, who would have been my great uncle by marriage, John Vanden, who lived. This was the cabin on his property. I'm sitting on John Vanden's property. Actually, I didn't never put all this together, but it's all very appropriate. And I put this song together. I got a bunch of great lyrics, sort of historically based lyrics about the area. And again, I mentioned I was really into writing about this part of the world we're from. But, it was kind of raw, and I took it to Adrian and Glenn, who was the bass player at the time, and I don't know, Adrian might remember this, but it had all these sort of like different sections and little kind of funny little gospel thing I was trying to get going, and they were like, Chris, we got to do some editing on this song here if we're ever going to record it and do anything with it. I don't know, Adrian, if you want to relate anything about your memory of hearing this song for the first time, or what you did to help me make it right. No? Silence? I can't hear you.
I think he's muted.
He might be muted. Josie's muting him. She doesn't want to hear Dad talking. I mean, I could share quickly. We do need to jump into the song, as you guys say. We're never going to get through the songs. Are you coming, Adrian, or? He
can maybe chime in after.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Well,
what else? Last thing I'll say is that the idea definitely was to do a sea shanty, an a cappella thing that we. I grew up with. My dad was a folk musician, and they had this one old Appalachian Mountain a cappella thing they did. They always closed their songs with. I was touring around with them as a 5-year-old, touring, not a big word, small T touring around the Kootenays in BC. And I just saw right from the time as a young kid what it could do to an audience. So I was like, we got to have some a cappella in this band. And that was the genesis of this song. And like I say, Adrian and Glenn helped me clean it up. And the first time we ever played it was at a festival in Florida. We did it live in Jacksonville at the Gamble Rogers Festival, I think it was called, down there, and standing ovation. And we were like, okay, we're on to something. And I would say of all the Bills tunes, this one, the way we brought it all together and the way we performed it live, has had the most legs. Like I'm getting, regularly I get a message from a choir, in Spain or in England who's like, we're going to do this song, and could you send us the proper words because we're trying to interpret them, or do you have an arrangement? And Adrian is captain arrangement and helps. He's actually charted the thing and all the different vocal parts. So anyway, Bamfield's John Vanden is something I'm still really proud of. But last thing I'll say is this recording is like a good version of it, but it's the phrasing. Sometimes we rush through things. It's not actually my favorite version of this song. And Adrian has a couple live recordings of it that we'll play for your listeners some other time or on a different show. But it's still something I'm really proud of. And that's as much as I have to say about it.
Right on. It sounds so good. And when I was listening to it, I was thinking how ahead of the times you were now that sea shanties are such a big deal in the social media world. So I hope anybody out there with a TikTok account just start passing this one around. Make it viral. Make it viral. It's amazing. Bamfield's John Vanden from the Bills here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
I come from the mud and the wind and the wet, from as far to the west as a man can get. And I worked those waters for all my years, and I caught my share of triumph and tears. Ah, the ocean's the source of my hopes and fears. Kept an eye on the jigger pole, hand on the gaff, and a smiley on the line always brought a laugh. She's the prize of the coast, biggest of the springs. We would carry her home past Edward King, unloading at the packers and the money would ring. I'm Bamfield's John Vanden. And you might slip and stumble on the rocks at the shore and exult in the blast of the mighty wake's roar. But when you stand humbled by the ocean's door, then you'll understand just who I am, Bamfield's Johnny Vanden. Fair weather is a mask that the devil dons, a disguise for the tempest that's coming on. But looking toward the west, I can always tell by the tint of the sky and the strength of the swell, who's winning today, is it heaven or hell? And when unseen arms through thundering gales, we risked our souls on that telegraph trail. When the listing wrecks needed us the most, we slipped past death on the graveyard coast. but the ocean remembers, so we never did boast. I'm Bamfield's John Vanden. And you might slip and stumble on the rocks at the shore and exult in the blast of the mighty wake's roar. But when you stand humbled by the ocean's door, then you'll understand just who I am, Bamfield's Johnny Vanden. I rolled and trolled and my hands were worn in God's vindictive southeast storms. Heard the hull of the ship as it ripped and groaned, but there is one thrill I have never known. Yes, the love of a woman I could call my own. So your questions of romance don't ask me. I'm the man who wed the Pacific Sea. Tempestuous though she may have been, I'm more faithful to you never seen. She's kept me wise and fit and lean. I'm Bamfield's John Vanden. And you might slip and stumble on the rocks at the shore and exult in the blast of the mighty wake's roar. But when you stand humbled by the ocean's door, then you'll understand just who I am, Bamfield's Johnny Vanden, Bamfield's John Vanden.
All right,
Yeah.
the Bills with Bamfield's John Vanden, and that's from their 2004 release "Let 'Em Run," which we are revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party. We have a couple members of the Bills and some of the next generation of great players from Canada
Yeah, and
joining
we got
us
to see
today.
some Bamfield there, right?
Yeah,
Chris, that's right where
that
you
was
are.
cool.
I was trying to show you some photos of Johnny and his house that I was showing you out there. That's where that song is about.
That's
lives
where
his
he
whole life.
lived, eh?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So for those of you who are just listening, you'll have to tune into the YouTube version to check out some live footage there. That was
Yeah, yeah. And if you like what you heard, and again, if you were listening the way we're listening, which is the raw audio, it sounds so good. I know it doesn't always carry all the character of especially the acoustic instruments and the voices when it's going through the interwebs, but you can buy this record. You can get it on CD. Of course, it's on the digital platforms as well, but I highly recommend getting it on CD format, especially because then you get the booklet and the beautiful artwork and all of that good stuff. So you can purchase that at the Bills website, which is scrolling there on the screen, and we'll throw it in the comments as well. And maybe this would be a good time actually to talk about the artwork as well. Is this a Ycraft artwork?
Adrian, do you want to? You got your hands full, but I definitely want to let you have some voice.
I missed a couple of words because of the little squawks over here. Yeah. Well, I had a couple of before we sign off on John Vanden. I actually remembered a couple of funny things from being in the studio on that one. And the first one, which I didn't jump in on earlier because my screen got corrupted by young hands, is that Chris actually didn't want it to be a sea shanty. On some level, you didn't want it to be a sea shanty, and like Glenn and I just couldn't figure that out because we're like, dude, it's a sea shanty, and we're like, no, it's not. But it's literally about the ocean, and it's a cappella, but it had all these other directions that you wanted to go in, and we had to tooth and nail just pull you toward the fact that it was a sea shanty, and then of course it was, and it made sense. But there was a small bit of meteorological syntax that we had to adjust because Chris, after solidifying, okay, these are all the verses, we cut it down from 16 verses to however many it is, and there was the one that referred to a southwest gale. Is it southeast gale or southwest? There's a directional reference, and we'd already recorded some of the parts, and Chris was like, it's wrong. I checked with the old fisherman and it's wrong. It's never southeast. It's always southwest. So we had to get Joey to just go in and sing and replace one word on Glenn's vocal. And he had to mimic his voice as he was doing it. And we were just splitting up because,
Gotta get it right, man.
Like east instead of west or something, right?
And yeah, we switched east for west and in order to make it scientifically correct, which of course is the most important thing.
Southeast is the correct bad storm. Southwest is what we had put by accident. Just so everybody listeners know. If you feel the southeast wind coming up around Vancouver Island, take cover.
That actually happened. And regarding the album cover, the artwork was done by an old friend of Mark's, I think a friend of his family, who had done artwork for his trio, his jazz trio, a few times. and has usually done 3D pieces. So this is actually a stitched. Mark probably has it in his studio over there if he ever gets his modem working again. Is he there still? But it's quite a physical piece, so it was a little tricky to capture. I remember trying to photograph it. I think I might have photographed it and sent slides to Rycraft, who did the design in Toronto. But Ken Flett is the artist who did the piece, and it's very cool to actually hold, because I think Chris's pants are burlap and there's like leather. The upright base is made out of leather with some, shaved off to get the shading on the side, and there's pieces of fabric and stitching and various things. And he somehow captured each of our youthful awesomeness. And Chris looks a little bit sort of like Day of the Dead. But he did sort of capture this like old timiness of it. That's also kind of strange and contemporary.
That's gorgeous. I love
which
it.
We were like, there was only one version of it. We didn't go through version 1 and version 2 and version 3 of the art. It was that's it. How are we going to present it? And then, Michael Rycraft did all the typesetting and art direction beyond that. And the booklet, I think it is fairly long.
Yeah, I remember it has all the lyrics, and it's a beautiful package.
Back in the good old days, that's what we used to do.
Well, and I think that's when, certainly when we met, because originally this album was released on Borealis Records, a great label up in Canada, and then Red House Records, where I was working at the time, Red House picked it up and distributed it in the States. And so this was, I think, the first project that we got to work on together, was this album, which is so beautiful. I do want to make sure we answer Joe's question, which is how many vocal parts were on that last song?
5 guys,
5
parts. That's the basic, and then we might have added some stuff. I don't know, Adrian, did we do anything else on the recording? But it's really
I ended up singing the bass part because I was like the last one to show up. and Glenn had already nabbed the baritone part, which I would have rather done. But he, of course, the wrong word.
That is awesome. Got some singers growing up in Adrian's house.
Yeah, and it looks like Heather joining us from Glasgow. And certainly, if you're out there listening and you want to throw in any comments, questions for the band, this is your chance to ask them. They can be as detailed as how many vocal parts, or as general as, what are you listening to these days? So throw them in the comments, and we'll try and get to as many questions as we can, while squeezing in as many musical tracks as we can. And the next one we have queued up is the Gatlinburg. Is there anything you want to say before we dive in?
Lots going on. I'm sorry that Mark was having technical difficulties, so he has had to leave. It'd be great to have him here. This is a composition full on of Mark's, and an instrumental that he wrote. We spent some time in Gatlinburg, Tennessee on a break between gigs down in that part of the United States. And Jeremy, who was the fiddler who was playing on this record, it's like his parents had this like timeshare thing they were part of. So we had this place to stay, and we spent 3 days hanging out in it's a very surreal place. If you're from West Coast of Canada, Gatlinburg, Tennessee was pretty odd. We hung out and people were writing and noodling, and Mark was working on the mandolin. He wrote this melody sitting out on the deck. He used to tell the story, these huge bumblebees, very dreamy, weird bumblebees sort of floating around. He wrote it and then ended up playing it on guitar. And he's a very renowned guitar player, Mark Atkinson. So those who don't know that, he just won the Canadian Folk Music Award for solo artist on the instrumental album just a few weeks ago.
Wow.
He's a heavy dude, got a band, the Mark Atkinson Trio, that I joined him in as a rhythm player for years, but he's like a heavy jazz player. Anyway, but the main thing is about this song that I remember is that he ended up creating this whole sort of journey that goes on. You'll hear it slows down. There are these pieces, parts in the middle of the arrangement, and Adrian can talk about maybe the violin parts. But my most distinct memory is how when we finished the recording, we had a bit of a kind of, I don't know if we want to call it Lennon McCartney moment, where I was just like, dude, it's way too long and it's just sort of self-indulgent. That's the word that stuck. He never forgave me for using that terminology because it's just like sort of has this long part and you kind of roll through things. But of course, over the years, it's become a very popular thing. People want to hear it when we record. This is really one of the live favorites in terms of the instrumental bills, which is a big part of our personality. And so, yeah, I mean, I think people will hear it and just love it. It's also got some unusual kind of really chromatic pieces in the melody and stuff. It's not just like your standard fiddle tune in many ways. I don't know if Adrian, if you got some sonic space there, you want to talk quickly about the violins?
Yeah, it's absolute hell to play on the violin. Because he wrote it on a fretted instrument, and then he's like, "Oh, this would be a great little fiddle tune," and I'm like, no, I don't have enough fingers, and they're not small enough. Yeah, we figured out a way. It's one of those moments where you know the difference between a mandolin and a fiddle becomes obvious for us. But I think in the same vein as the overture going into Old Blue Bridge, Mark had this vision that it would have this whole dreamy interlude that was a total departure from the more sort of stoppy fiddle tune AV format. Kind of goes off to unexpected places. It's a tricky one to remember. There's a lot of parts in this one. It kind of just sounds like a little ditty in the key of A, but even the rhythm section, if you listen closely, every phrase is different.
So we should try and count the sections while we're listening to this
All right.
tune.
If anybody out there wants to do it, throw it in the comments.
Count the sharps and flats.
Let's rock it.
All right, let's give it a listen here. This is the Bills, the Gatlinburg, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Okay, I don't know if I counted right, but I was there 6 sections to that? I don't know. Who knows? A lot.
I definitely
That
heard a
was
little Tennessee rubbing off on
yeah, for
on
sure.
that one.
For
But
sure.
yeah, that was great. That was the Bills again from their 2004 release "Let 'Em Run," which we are revisiting today on the back catalog listening party. And if you like what you've been hearing, in addition to buying the album, you can also throw something in the tip jar. The Bills, they're obviously raising the next generation here. So
Right.
and Mark needs new internet. So
Right.
I want to throw something in the
The
tip
bills,
jar.
the bills got to pay the bills, folks.
Yeah,
So
man.
throw a little something there in their
That's
PayPal and let them know how much you want to get the band back together here and see them live. Anything in the works for you guys right now? that You'd like to.
Happily, I'm always sort of pushing the guys to try to get back in the studio. We'll work on that. But in terms of live shows, it's just everything's opening back up really quickly here in Canada, and so we've been receiving festival invitations for festivals, that are 2 weeks away. Yeah, so you guys, like, we just gotten the word that we're allowed to, run this thing again with limited audience, and so there a couple of gigs are coming together, and we'll see how everything goes with everybody's other commitments. Everybody has a lot of other musical projects going on, and then there's a bunch of parenting projects going on, and other things happening. So it's interesting to try to assemble the five of us to do stuff now. Really exciting to be the first festivals we're going to play will be just pretty fun. We haven't done a gig in a year and a half, and we're not really going to rehearse much before. So
But we're going to rock. A lot of parts to come together here. Listening to this, you guys have your work cut out for you. Another reason to fill up that tip jar, folks.
I was going to say, I think they're taking notes as they listen to the songs. Oh yeah, that's what we do during that track.
Totally.
I know that you are, Chris.
Joe's asking these questions. I see in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
In the comments, and it's definitely for sure the evocative, the imagery, the kind of theater stuff. A lot of that music, like the classical genre that Adrian and Richard have both spent a lot of time in, and then the jazz side of things, and then the world music and the folk root stuff around the world. I mean, it's all comes from really seeking. It's not just dance music, like there's a lot there. So for sure, we're into that. We're trying to do it all, man. I mean, it's a big,
Yeah.
we don't set any limits on what we think we can try to accomplish together.
And speaking of theatrical, too, if any of you ever get a chance to see the Bills live, you are such wonderful performers. I mean, I think there is a sort of theatrical element to what you do. It's not just in the music itself, just animated and choreography, and I don't know. It's just... not a lot of high kicks. Although actually I do remember a high kick or two here or there. But yeah, really, really great stuff. In fact, speaking of live performances, Waves Ray wants to know, what are the chances of you guys getting to South Florida? And it sounds like you're just starting to get back into the live thing. But yeah, we haven't seen you in the States for a little while. So we want to make that happen.
Yeah, man. Thank you, Waves Ray. We've over the last sort of 10 years, we've done kind of annual trips down into Northern California, mostly, Oregon maybe a bit, but we're sticking pretty West Coast, for the travel thing. And so who knows? I wouldn't say never, but
Minneapolis might be a nice midway point there on your way down.
The only time we ever did a nice gig in St. Paul for whatever the theater was there, where we played, I can't remember. It's on campus, I think. Beautiful, nice theater, and it turned out that the taxation laws dinged us, and they had to withhold like almost half our pay because of some crazy rule or whatever. So we're never going back there. No. I don't remember what it was.
We'll put on an underground show, right, Ellen?
Totally.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of looking at the processing fees for the work visas, and they haven't gone down.
Yeah.
That part's true. Yeah.
You guys have a lot of musicians down there. We shouldn't be coming and taking musician jobs.
That's right.
Well, we would love to have you down here. We'll have to get a festival to pay all the expenses.
Besides, and you currently, I don't think, have a banjo player, so you wouldn't be taking our jobs away, right, Tony? So
That's right. Well, go
ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that, I just wanted to relay this story because the first time I ever heard you, it was right around the time this album came out, and I was in a video store, so that kind of maybe puts things into perspective, and I literally just stopped what I was doing because I hadn't heard a banjo on pretty much anything on the radio up until then. I think they were playing a public radio station. And it was this really amazing song. I just stopped and listened. And of course, they didn't say who the band was. And years later, like on a Pandora station, I recognized it instantly. I think it was a track off this record called "When the Well Runs Dry."
When the bucket runs dry.
Or bucket runs dry. Yeah. And like I was like, that's it. And I've been hooked on this ever since. I just think the ways that you integrate these folk instruments with all these different genres is just so uniquely you. And actually, Ellen and I were wondering if it's somehow uniquely Canadian to be able to just bridge so many styles together into something that is so authentic.
Your listeners may know the term mosaic. The difference between the way the States deals with a mix of cultures is down there it's a melting pot. Everybody sort of get in line. I mean, I shouldn't put it that way, but up here it's a mosaic. So like we trumpet our multiculturalism and everybody, the differences are what make us stronger and all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure you hear those kind of messages in the right audiences in the States. But that mosaic is for sure. Yeah, we I think on the West Coast especially, we don't have necessarily like a really strong traditional style of music here. It came from the West Coast, going back hundreds of years. So bands here do just tend to have open ears and pick up on, I mean, it's not just happening here on the West Coast, but Vancouver Island is an incredible place for that kind of mixing of styles and just going for it, which I really appreciate.
I actually feel like I moved to Vancouver for 4 years, a few years back now. And coming from Victoria and the sort of area around there and really growing up in it, playing fiddle with like a whole generation of fiddlers that were steeped in pretty eclectic stuff. I definitely feel like even going to Vancouver, there's kind of a straight-lacedness to a lot of the music that's being made there, and there's a lot of my experiences in the studio over there for sessions and things is like a lot of people playing it really safe, and it's great, it's good, it's well done. But I've seen like, definitely when seeing the Bills before I joined the Bills, there was something that was like, this is really weird and fresh. And I think a lot of subsequent bands that, whether or not they were consciously, modeling everything they did based on the Bills or what, but I felt like the sort of, not the non-confined, need to plot things in genres or not, just like letting things be weird. I think was kind of unique to Victoria, and like I certainly feel like a lot of the projects that came out of the generation of players that I was part of, are pretty weird.
Well, we love the weird.
Yeah, in the best possible way.
Even the stuff
the big city doesn't quite do weird like that.
It's stuff that sounds like it's a little more straight-laced. Like I think we're gonna try to play "Let Him Run." I'm gonna just try to see if we can push forward, help you guys, because I know we're just going to tell what to say. But we want to listen to "Let Him Run." Is that the next tune we have?
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, that is.
Maybe also just along the lines, I'll try to do like segue into the conversation we're having here. It's like this song sounds a little bit like, it's kind of like a dancey kind of, it's got a fiddle and mandolin kind of stuff, but a lot that's going on here. Like Mark was listening to a lot of African style, like guitar playing, and his cross picking stuff on the mandolin is really, really cool. It's also in you're counting 3 beats to the bar in this song, even though you wouldn't, like the normal kind of, everyday person listening to the song wouldn't go, oh, this is kind of like in 3, but it actually is. You count the slow 3 beats. People can see if they can feel that through it. So just like uniqueness. And it's also a tune that we didn't play live for the first little while. The album came out and we were finding it actually difficult to figure out the live arrangement of this song. We battled and pushed with it. Some tunes are just like that,
Mm-hmm.
But what we do live now is we open it up much more. There's this massive solo section in the middle where we just go in different directions and we stop and people do different things. And so the arrangement on the album is a little more straight ahead, but there's a lot going on in this song that's maybe a little deceptive. It sounds deceptively simple, I'd say. And it's about chickens, so it's always been one of our biggest hits. Chickens are big, man.
Right on. All right. Well, let's let them run. This is the Bills on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
our eggs over easy or boil them up hard. And everybody's running, but they'll never get far. Let 'em run, let 'em run. I call 'em Ginger and Halle, Billy and May. They cluck and scratch and make happy all day. If you wanna get your dozen, gotta give 'em space. Well, let 'em run, 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 let 'em run. They thrust me into this devil's den to learn the ways of the temptress hands. I'm an illegal rooster, gotta show you, man, how to run, how to run. Old Blue Baker got 23 head, and that's too much for just one, they said. After 3 hard days, they found him dead. Let 'em run, 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 let 'em run. I keep 4 legal chickens in my backyard. Give me 3 coddled eggs with steamed up chard. And everybody's running, but they'll never get far. Let 'em run, 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 let 'em run.
All right, the Bills,
Yeah.
the title track to their 2004 release, Let 'Em Run, which we have been revisiting today on the Back Catalog Listening Party. Such good stuff, and folks loving it. And Suzanne chiming in from Ottawa. And it's so great to have you all here with us today, and especially Chris and Adrian and Mark got to spend a little time with us as well. And this has been such a treat to dig into this record and your process and your very eclectic music.
Agreed. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been just a pleasure. It's so many layers to kind of unravel.
We
this
need like
music.
5 hours to
I
go
know,
through all this
I know.
music.
Like I have so many other questions I want to ask. Maybe we can do the other half of the record another time.
Well,
We'll
we
have
invite people to fire us any follow-up questions they have anytime and keep it. You guys, it's been a wonderful opportunity. Thanks. And to see Adrian's, Josie, and Arlie there and hear them has been wonderful too. They're stars of the show, AD.
I know, for
I
sure.
think I'll be
And
working banana off of my laptop for the next 4 days. But,
well, if you, for all of you out there listening, if you are new to the show, we do this every Friday at 4 p.m. Not always with the Bills, but we always have guests in to talk about old records. And if you like the show, then like it on YouTube, give it the thumbs up so that more of the bots will direct stuff to the Bills, direct you to their videos and their work, and then also subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get notified of our next shows. And next week we actually have another former Red House band, Story Hill, wonderful folk duo, will be joining us next week. And another way you can get involved with the show, if you like it, is to support it. We have Patreon supporters that keep the show running, which enable us to keep things streaming and moving. Thanks to Penny, Ann, Alinda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, Joe, John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, and Dave, and maybe you, if you want to get in on that. And one of the things we do for our patrons is we do sometimes after parties where we get to hear some of the songs we didn't get to talk about during the show. So maybe we need to have the Bills on for a little bonus one of these days.
Yeah, if you need to warm up for your next concert or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah, we do.
Virtual something.
We are going to actually go out with the last tune because we promised, Chris, we were saying we're going to try and get to this last tune because it's a short one.
Between all the members of the band and all the instruments they play, he was just saying, even with 5 songs, we couldn't represent all the layers of this album. So it's another reason. Just one more quick, plug for getting the record. You're gonna love it. You can go to thebills.ca/store to pick up the album, and there's way more than we could pack into an hour here. We know you'll love it. So definitely check that out. But we did want to make sure we got to this last tune. And anything you want to say about this one, The Traveler?
It's the first tune I wrote. It's actually the first tune I ever wrote on accordion. At the time of, I think I recorded it on a borrowed accordion because I didn't really have a good accordion at the time. I've written a lot of fiddle tunes and fiddle music, but I wanted to kind of go in a different direction. It was actually inspired by, or the name was inspired by a painting that was hung in a coffee shop. There was a little show of a local artist, and it was really kind of like quirky. I think they featured crows as different characters, and there was one called The Traveler. It was like a crow with an outfit and things, bags, and all that. So it's a slightly sort of impressionistic kind of thing. And we've always made space on the albums for these sort of like little relief moments where there's just a duo or even a solo thing. Even in the very first unavailable albums. So this ended up being one of those.
What's the instrumentation on this?
So this ended up being accordion and bass.
Accordion bass.
Bass. So this is Glenn Manders on bass and me on accordion.
This guy, Adrian Dolan, is a really gifted composer, ladies and gentlemen, and he always comes up with these pieces of beauty. So I really thought it was great that we could include this one.
Thanks, Chris.
I think it's the perfect way to end the show, and at least for folks down here, we're kicking off a long weekend here in the States, and this has been such a pleasure. Thanks again. We'll just take it out on this last tune, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody else again next week here on the Back Catalog Listening Party. But before we go, let's give this a listen. This is the Bills, The Traveler, on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ellen and Tony.
All right. The Bills with the Traveler closing things out this week on the back catalog listening party from their album Let 'Em Run. Get it, folks. It's
Yes.
awesome. Thank you so much again to Adrian and Chris, and also to Mark, who joined us too for a little bit. What a wonderful show. And have a great weekend, folks. This is
Yeah.
a great way to kick it off.
Cheers. Until
Cheers,
next
everybody.
week.
Take care.
See ya.